gonna let people find us real quick. Elizabeth is signing back on. Come on in, everybody. Welcome back to another Holler Hour here at the Holler. Justin. Cassie's here. We have our friend Eric Patton joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about the anti-trans athlete bill coming up. Before we get to that, follow all the hollers throughout the state. You guys are how we've been able to grow. You make it possible. Chipping in monthly really helps. Subscribe at tnholler.com, at the TN Holler on Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere else. We're going to be talking to Elizabeth Wanczak today about her race. But before we get to that, we have a special guest. Eric Patton is here. Elizabeth, we're going to bring you in for it also. But Eric is here to talk about the anti-trans athlete bill that passed the House last night and is headed to Governor Lee's desk. Eric, let me just say hi to you first. How you doing?
I'm good, Justin. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, can you hear us now? Do we have you too?
I can. Apologies. I'm not sure what happened.
Don't worry about it at all.
Internet went down in the house. So.
No problem. We have you now. So we're going to talk about the anti-trans athlete bill. Then we're going to talk about your race. I just wanted, before we get to that, show this is the video of the bill passing last night. This is our little highlight reel of the discussion on the House floor last night. Let's go ahead and watch this.
Maintains the competitive balance, safety, and the opportunities for scholarships and advancements for our female athletes.
Not one scholarship has been denied. Not one single instance of an issue in the state of Tennessee. This isn't about that. This is about discrimination, plain and simple. This could be your child. It could be your grandchild. There's zero reason for the state of Tennessee to be proactively discriminating against children.
This is not a problem that anyone has identified in Tennessee. That hurts our reputation nationwide. It could cost us business opportunity and important tourism dollars. Federal law is clear. It's unconstitutional to discriminate against a transgender child. We're inviting another lawsuit for no good reason, division politics.
Follow the science. Just follow the science. You believe, follow the science. You believe, follow your emotion, follow how you feel. But your emotions and how you feel are not true. And after 2 years of therapy, these biologically born males still had a 12% advantage. We are doing the right thing for every little girl in the state of Tennessee.
Senate Bill 228 will receive constitutional majority. I hereby declare it passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled.
All right, so that was last night. You saw the end there. We posted who voted how on this thing, and that brings us to the issue that Eric is here to talk about. This was the board last night. Green is who voted yes on the bill. Red is who voted no on the bill. Blue is who passed. White is who wasn't there. And today, Eric, as the chair of the LGBTQ caucus for the Tennessee Dems, had a statement that you put out. Eric, tell us what you saw on that board and what your statement says.
Sure. So first off, let's talk to Governor Bill Lee directly. Governor Lee, you need to veto this bill. This is going to cost billions potentially in Title IX funding. It is going to cost lawsuit money. And worst of all, it's going to hurt children. It's going to actively hurt children in the state. It's acceptable, especially when you can't find one instance of a trans athlete even attempting to play a sport in the state. This is not coming with CSSAA. It's incredible government overreach. And it's just severely stigmatizing to trans kids who are already hurting enough in the state. So first off, Governor Lee, veto this. Come to your senses, please, for the sake of children. Second of all, I am, as the chair of the Tennessee Democrat LGBTQ caucus, mortified that we had leaders in our party who voted present and Antonio Parkinson who voted yes.
And Wendell.
These are leaders of the party. And John Mark Wendell, yes. I don't consider him a leader in the party. He's kind of put himself on an island. John Mark is an old dear friend of mine, and I am mad as can be at him personally. But professionally, Representative Parkinson, as caucus chair of the Black Caucus, should know better. And being as a gay man in this state when we have Tory Harris, who was just elected, who is a member of his caucus. It's unacceptable, completely unacceptable for anybody to vote yes as a Democrat on a bill that stigmatizes his children. Period. And the idea that Karen Camper, Linda Mark, and Jesse Chisholm had the nerve to sit there and vote present when trans rights were on the line is beyond acceptable. And those three really resign now. You do not deserve to have a position of leadership in the House Minority Caucus if you cannot stand for the LGBTQ community. Period. You do not deserve your seat. You need to resign immediately.
So just to reiterate, this is the release that you put out. It says Governor Lee should veto the bill, and you urge new leadership in the House caucus. So Leader Camper, that was London Lamar, and Jesse Chisholm, those were the three that you were pointing to as needing to resign, not their seats in the legislature, but their leadership roles in the caucus. I guess I would say, is it your feeling that a blue light vote to not vote on this is as bad as a green vote to support it?
They did not stand to support the LGBTQ community. Therefore, they might as well have voted yes. They showed us exactly where they stand. And they showed us, as LGBTQ citizens, that we cannot trust them as leadership.
Gotcha. And I'm going to let you get out of here on this one. There are a lot of companies that sent a letter to these legislators calling on them not to support this bill and the slate of hate in general. But a lot of those companies, as Abby Lee Hidd points out, still donate to Republicans who support the transgender ban and bills like it. She names Amazon, Publix, Walgreens, the Titans, Luke Bryan himself, Southwest Air. It seems like these letters aren't really worth the paper they're written on unless they come with some bite behind them in the way of canceling the donations to these Republicans. Would you agree with that, Eric?
I completely agree. And I have said on my own several times that Amazon, Southwest, those companies that Abby mentioned in her wording, which is a great report in the Tennessee Lookout, by the way, everyone should read that if they haven't already. Those companies and those individuals have got to start standing up and pulling donations from folks who are not supporting LGBTQ rights. We need their support. We need everyone on board with this because this is getting out of hand. It is well known that Amazon is bringing 5,000 jobs to Nashville, and they have brought several. And they are one of the biggest supporters of organizations like the Human Rights Campaign. They've made donations to Tennessee Quality Project. They need to stand with their dollars as well as their signatures.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here talking to us about it, Eric, and we have posted your statement. We'll look to see what action comes of it. Obviously, this feels like a civil rights issue at its core, and, all the representatives in the caucus should be standing behind it. And it was sad to see a lot of them not do that. Not 100% surprising, I would say. And as you mentioned, John Mark Wendell, who's in a more conservative district. But this is something where leaders lead, and the ones who don't should get out of the way. And I think that's the point you're making. So I appreciate you coming on here. Go ahead, Cass.
I just want to also just share my thoughts on this as well. And Eric, I really, really appreciate your statement that you put out. And I, as another LGBTQ person in the state, I 100% agree with everything that you said. It is supremely disappointing. I mean, not only that the legislation passed, but I don't expect any less of our, the Republicans in the legislature, but the fact that there were so many Democrats that passed, which I agree may as well be a vote for it. They're not standing with the LGBTQ community. They're not standing with trans people, with trans kids. And then the two that voted for it, it is appalling. It really was extremely upsetting to me. So I really appreciate you putting your statement out, and thanks for coming on.
And we should also point out that there was actually a Republican who voted against it, Eddie Manis.
Yeah,
the
Eddie
only
Manis.
openly gay Republican. And no, if Eddie can come out and oppose this bill, there's really no excuse for any Democrats not to.
No, and Eddie Manis is someone we didn't support. He's not a Democrat. But I would personally like to thank him for standing up on the right side of this issue. And I will say I'm very pleased to see it. I'm pleased to see that adding some a gay Republican to the House will hopefully make them stop and think before they pull some more of these bills, because right now we are looking at the worst week in Tennessee legislature for LGBT rights. They have the legislative hate.
Uh-oh, we're losing Eric.
Did we lose him?
Sorry, I was trying to call Eric.
No problem.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. You're breaking up a little bit, though.
Sorry, my mom was trying to call.
Yeah. Okay. You were talking about the slate of hate, and I just did want to point out that at 3:00 coming up, we're going to be simulcasting the Education Instruction Subcommittee, which is going to talk about the anti-LGBT textbook, or the textbook ban, which basically bans textbooks that, I think it says, supports, affirms, even acknowledges gay people in any way. Truly ugly stuff.
I mean, not that Boston was in school anyway, and I don't think they are right now anyway. So it was a shame, because I love my nephew who's in public school to learn about Harvey Milk.
Yeah.
So that's a shame. It really is. And we've got to start treating LGBTQ teens just like everyone else. And
I think that
this discrimination, this hate has got to stop.
Absolutely. Eric, thanks so much for coming on here. Appreciate the work you do, and come back and join us soon. All right.
Thank you, Justin and Kathy. Good to see you.
Take care.
Bye.
So hopefully you guys saw the letter that we put up from Eric and the LGBTQ Young Dems Caucus and the TNDP LGBT Caucus. Also, they're calling for some leadership resignations among the Tennessee Democrats. We'll see what happens. We'll definitely be watching, but it was definitely disappointing to see this list of people who opted out. That was not something that we expected.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and bring in Elizabeth Wanczak now. How are you? Sorry about that. Thanks for being patient.
I'm well. No, I apologize. We were having a bunch of wind gusts, and I think it's like knocked out our Wi-Fi. So I've switched to the other network, and hopefully that's good.
Wind gusts. Look at that. Well, welcome. We've all known each other a little while. You're here in Williamson County. Tell us, first of all, what are you running for?
I am running for City of Franklin Alderman in Ward 4. So Ward 4 is the historic downtown Franklin and the west side of town, south of 96. So it encompasses basically everything from downtown Franklin to West Haven, and then some of the neighborhoods that are close to Pinkerton Park up to Mac Hatcher.
Okay. And when is the election?
The election is October 26th. So we are getting it going early. I'm excited to have most of the year to campaign and get to know the ward and the voters.
That's good. So you're out in front of it. You're out early. And what in a Franklin Alderman race, what are the issues that people should understand or be concerned with? What does an alderman deal with? And, why is it important to replace the one that's in there?
So the alderman is Franklin's version of city council. So we deal with anything that specifically deals with city ordinances. And it's a lot of really kind of boring, frankly, stuff that's really important to our day-to-day lives, like sewers and trash collection and road infrastructure, and the stuff that I frankly take for granted most of the time is what the city has control over. Although I can tell you, when I have any sort of issue like that, it's really great to know that the city's dealing with that. But the biggest issue that I hear consistently with voters, and it's going to be coming right dab for the dart, in smack dab into Ward 4 is growth and development and how all that is affecting the city. Ward 4, because of where it is a lot of what's coming up for development in the city is around the Mac Hatcher extension, which it comes straight into Ward 4. And so my platform is smart growth, fiscal responsibility, and community involvement. I have been the on the Housing Commission since 2017 and had the honor of serving as chair for 2 years. And we have definitely been intimately, actively working with the city on all of the growth and development, particularly in how it goes into attainable and workforce housing. On this side of town, a lot of the development that will be happening is in 50 and 100-year floodplains. So there's also the concern of making sure we're doing everything in a smart way to minimize environmental impact, provide for adequate infrastructure, doing it in a way that we can afford to do it and not spend more money later, which is, I'm always for getting it right the first time so you don't have a lot of resources wasted trying to correct mistakes. And then making sure that we're, keeping Franklin has an incredible quality of life, and making sure that we're really having ordinances and policies that cultivate that.
Cassie, are you in Ward 4?
I believe so. I actually just moved here, but I believe so because I know that your jurisdiction covers the factory, and I'm right near there. So
you are in Ward 4, yes.
Yes, yes. We just moved here. I need to check and make sure I know who all my local officials are. But yes, I believe so. And I had a question also, Elizabeth. So you've been on the Housing Commission for a while now, and one of the things that just always is kind of at the forefront of my mind is kind of what you alluded to at the beginning there, was how to balance, development, which can be a good thing just for, revenue and jobs and things like that. But then also balancing that with making sure that affordable housing and making sure that housing prices and rent prices don't skyrocket for folks that don't make as much money. So in your opinion, how do you balance those two things as a local official, and how would that work kind of as an alderman if you were elected?
So
in an ideal world, I guess.
In an ideal world, yes. So one thing that the city just passed in February that has been something that the Housing Commission worked on for years is an incentive program to encourage developers if they are wanting to build attainable and workforce housing. The city has lots of impact fees, and I know we've heard about impact fees at the state level. A lot of for new development building, there was a lawsuit actually that was going through because impact fees often pay for county schools as well, which is not the purview of the city alderman, but is often when we hear this term. So there are parkland impact fees, sewer impact fees, and it's just a way to try to help pay for the cost of when you develop land and as part of our land use policy. So for whether it's nonprofit or for commercial for-profit developers, if they are willing to commit to that, the city has this incentive program that will basically, after the property is built, and there's a whole list of things it has to meet, one of which is that it must be deed restricted so that it's not just a flipped house the next month,
Right.
They will reimburse the impact fees for sewer and parkland. And it's sort of a pilot program. I think they've allocated $1 million as the initial test, but this is something that we're hearing from constituents. We're hearing from, I've gotten to know all of the people at Williamson Inc. because we're hearing it from the business community, that this is something that Franklin needs. We're growing exponentially, and that's amazing, and there's good and bad and making sure we're doing it right, but they call it the missing middle for a reason, because we just haven't really been targeting that, and this particular policy will be trying to address that in a Franklin way. The other thing that I'm hopeful to see the city move on, and if I were to be elected would be an absolute yes vote, is the development of the Hill property, which is a piece of city-owned property that's there behind the Sonic off of Hillsborough Road.
Oh, right.
To Mount Hope Cemetery. So for a really long time, that had a part of the water department on it, and had gone to disarray. They've built newer and better location for that, and it has sat there for a really long time. And they're discussing on potentially allowing that to be developed for workforce and attainable housing. And it also is essentially a part of Hard Bargain, which is a historic African-American Franklin neighborhood.
Is that the place where they had a vote on if it was going to be like a park or more housing, and then it kind of
Yes.
just nothing happened with it.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
So
it does.
they took it. It was more of a survey, less than a vote. So they were just
Right.
trying to
Right.
get
Survey. That's a better
the
description of it.
the
Exactly.
feel of
I
the
remember they had
community.
they had all these presentations, and you got to go around and check something off or something like
Yes.
that.
But there does
Uh,
seem to be, even with the current board, and this is definitely something I would consider if elected, is to have that be an example of how Franklin can address this in a Franklin way. Because it really is, I mean, we're hearing from seniors who want to downsize, and there's nothing to downsize to. We're here, I mean, the business community, we want that kind of vital community that has options for all different, people from
when
all sorts of different, economic backgrounds.
when you say a Franklin way, like I kind of know what you mean, but what is it that you mean exactly when like a Franklin way?
I think the biggest thing is just doing it to really fit the city's aesthetic, making sure, I mean, and if you drive through a lot of these new, I mean, they're beautiful craftsman homes that people are building that really fit the layout, particularly in Ward 4. I mean, you don't want to put homes that don't look like the neighborhood surrounding them. So we've got, if we're talking about the Hill property that's there adjacent to Hard Bargain, a lot of the homes that they're currently building in Hard Bargain are craftsman style. That would be perfect right there on that property to really fit into the aesthetic of that neighborhood. We have other parts of town where, condos and townhomes are perfect for that, that aesthetic, and just trying to make sure we address it in a way that is kind of uniquely Franklin. I mean, Franklin, I think, has ability to handle this in a way that works for us that may not work for other. I mean, this is an issue that all municipalities across the country are discussing, and making
Right.
sure that we're doing it the best for us.
I think when I think of the Franklin way, like because Franklin does want to be, I think, in a sincere way, a welcoming place that, obviously there's a lot of faith-based initiatives around and welcoming to people in that way. But then also it's sort of balancing that against, not wanting to grow out of control and, hurt the value of the home. So it's like that push and pull where, we talk about being the kind of Franklin that everybody wants it to be, but at a certain point, there are some things that you also have to get comfortable with also. And, I think people need to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, when it comes to taking care of people.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And I think Envision Franklin, which is the city's, literal like vision plan for the city. I mean, that is what has already passed the board. I support Envision Franklin, and it specifically lays out that we want a multi-dimensional, multi-fabricked Franklin with this vibrant cornucopia of beingness. That's our identity. We don't, as the city, there is sometimes some confusion between Franklin, the municipality, and Franklin, kind of the, people who live in the county who still have Franklin addresses. The city has no control over what the county does. But the city itself, they really want to have a diverse fabric of different, areas. And we've got kind of zones, there's Cool Springs. That's definitely much more of the commercial urban district. And then downtown Franklin has its own vibe and look. And then out towards West Haven and the new extensions of all that, most of the neighborhoods that'll be approved for that are what they call conservation neighborhoods, which the concern for that is the river and how we affect the flood if there were to be flooding, and we don't want to cause damage to new homes or other existing homes and structures. So they've tried really hard within what we call the UGB, the urban growth boundary, to make sure that everything kind of flows. And what I love about Ward 4 is we have several of those. We're going to have, parts that are conservation neighborhood. We've got downtown Franklin. We've got more, we've got some apartments. We've got, a variety of a, like I said, a cornucopia of different people and different backgrounds.
Just as a last thing, it's not a partisan race, right?
It is not a partisan race. That is correct.
Not a partisan race. Okay. So we won't talk about that. But how can people help you?
Well, I would appreciate everyone going to my website, Liz4Alderman.com. And if you go to /volunteer, there are a ton of ways to get involved. We are asking for volunteers this summer to help us knock on doors, get the word out. phone bank, canvas, yard signs. I will take a donation that anyone feels free to send me. I appreciate that so much. And just talking to your neighbors. The thing I love about truly hyper local government is you're really serving your immediate neighbors. We can get that sidewalk built. We can get that street connection that needs to be done, or the stop sign installed, or somebody's having, sewer issues in their backyard. We can get that fixed. And you can really see that change that's done to really better the community, and it can be done relatively quickly because there's just a lot less cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Okay, I have one last question.
Sure.
Your campaign manager, what can you tell us about him? I know he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. There's something really dark and mysterious about him. Where did you find this guy?
So I am honored to have Ben Jones as my campaign manager, and I've got who I know works for you on your race.
Oh, that guy.
I've gotten to know Ben the last couple of years, and he and I had gotten to talk as we knew I was talking this over about running again. And I'm very, very grateful that he has agreed to work for me. I tell people that he gives me my marching orders for the day, and we get it done. He is on top of it.
Yes, he definitely is. I know he's definitely upset that, there's not a lot of parades happening right now because, he and I have been through quite a few parades together. And, when I was running for Congress, like my everyday panic was like, are we going to miss a parade? If we missed one parade, that was going to make or break us. I know that was how I felt at the time. So he got us to a lot of parades, and I'm appreciative of that. Well, good luck to you, Liz. I'm glad you're doing this early.
Thank you very much. Thank you all so much for having me.
And
thanks for coming.
We'll be watching. Good luck.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. Liz running for alderman. Support her. We are going to do a shortish one today because we're going to come back on at 3:00 to simulcast the Education Instruction Subcommittee. But a couple things to touch on before then, real quick, with the people that are still with us today. Also at 3:00, there's going to be the let me get rid of that. The medical marijuana bill is up in Senate Judiciary Committee. These are the people to call and yell at about it. I am not optimistic about its chances for passing, but these are the people that stand in its way. It's time to move forward on this. So that's a graphic that we made to help you understand who to talk to. And
I think that for medical, there are a lot of bills that are being introduced in state legislatures across the country about just advancing, whether it be medical marijuana or just, at all, not just, just marijuana in general, like for whatever kind of use. And I believe I'd have to double check this, but I believe that Tennessee is the only state that isn't moving forward, like at least so far, and probably I don't see it happening. Is the only state not moving forward on it.
I think there's like 6 left that haven't done anything, but we might be the only one that's not
but
moving
out of the ones
forward. Yeah,
that have introduced legislation, the ones, because there are other states that have introduced legislation for stuff like this, and they're all at least moving forward on it. If the legislation has been introduced, I believe that Tennessee is the only one that has legislation in the works, but isn't moving forward on it, at least as of yet.
It's wild. We just saw an email from Senator Mike Bell to a constituent saying that this medical marijuana bill is unconstitutional, but it seems like the points he was making are really not valid. And, these guys are just stuck in some old world thinking. And really, this is an issue that I think crosses a lot of boundaries. There's Republicans who want this to happen. There's veterans that want this to happen. So, I think this is a big deal, but it's stuck at these people. And, chances are these guys were put on this committee to stop exactly this by Big Pharma, who supports, a lot of these people with their money and, follow the money with a lot of this stuff. That's another reason that, Jack Johnson just introduced a bill to raise bank fees on poor people. And then you look at his finances and you see, he got $10,000 from the Bankers Association. So, a lot of times if you just take a look at their money, you'll see where this is coming from. And too many articles don't mention this stuff. So, that's really ugly. And then one other thing, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think that that's always, I like that you're, highlighting that, just because I think that that's always going to give you the best answer if
Yeah.
folks follow the money with politicians and with media and anything like that. And that also, to what you said about, it not being necessarily reported on enough. That's one of the things I really appreciated about Abby Lee Hood's piece. She's covered
Yeah.
the anti-LGBTQ, especially anti-trans legislation. And that's, that was what her last piece really focused on, as we highlighted at the beginning, were all of the companies that, say that they don't agree with this stuff, but then still donate to these same
Right.
politicians.
Right. Money matters. And these
Right.
articles should really talk about it. And then just one last thing was the graphic you made about Kim White and Tim Kelly in Chattanooga, the mayor's race. And anybody in Chattanooga needs to know that Kim White wouldn't speak out against vouchers. And then one other pick seems to show why. So even though I guess that's a nonpartisan race, it seems pretty clear where Kim White stands. And, I think everybody needs to go in there with eyes wide open about that. What's that? Mystery. It's a real mystery.
Such a mystery.
Yes. All right. We'll be back in like a half hour about the Education Instruction Committee, and we'll be talking about the anti-LGBT textbook bill. And then there's an opt-out bill about gender identity curriculum. So join us in a little bit, but we're going to sign off for now. Thanks for joining us. We're here Tuesdays, Thursdays, 2 p.m.
Thanks, y'all.